All right, and that brings us to the ESPN head-to-head point draft number 3 of the day, and Chris will be hosting this one. I'm just going to kind of pass things along. We are also joined by Sky Dombrowski, who is the reigning, defending Tout Wars head-to-head champion. Sky, thank you so much for joining us. How's everything going, man?
Everything's great. How you guys doing?
Doing very well. It's obviously been a very hectic day, a fun day. Thank you to everyone for being here. We've got almost over 1,700 people watching us live right now. Thank you. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We are into draft number 3, which is a ESPN head-to-head points mock draft with daily lineups. I will pull up some of the specifications on this league. Again, it's daily lineups, and it's a 19-round draft. A little bit different lineups. There's 9 starting hitters, 1 of each infield position, 3 outfielders, 1 utility.
Same as the CBS Sports on that side.
That doesn't sound too different. But then there's only 7 pitcher spots, however you want to use them. So it's kind of like Roto in that you can start all 7 starters if you want. You can start all 7 relievers if you want. You can go 5-3, 5-2. If I could do math, 4-3, however you want to divide it up. So it'll be interesting to see how you guys want to do that. And the scoring format for hitters here, it's 1 point for each of a run, total base, RBI, walks, steals. That's for hitters, and -1 for hitter strikeouts, which changes a lot in this format. And for pitchers, 3 points per inning, 1 for a strikeout, 2 for a win, 5 for a save, 2 for a hold, -1 for each of a hit and a walk, -2 for earned runs and losses. Chris is drafting 8th in this draft, and I believe Sky is drafting 7th. So, Chris, I'll let you catch everyone up on the picks, and it's in your hands now. Enjoy, guys.
Yes, welcome to the ESPN head-to-head points draft. Sky, we brought you in because it's a different format, but you did win the head-to-head points Tout Wars League last season, and you and I will be drafting together in, what, about 36 hours? Something like that?
Is it that close? I think it's a few more than that, but we're in the ballpark now.
Yeah, we're Sunday at 10 a.m., Tout Wars head-to-head points. I'm in that one because I had been in one of the online ones for a while, and I wanted to get in an in-person draft, and I picked the one at 10 a.m. on a Sunday. So we'll see how that one goes. But yeah,
decision making, but yeah,
it's going to be fine. But we are 8 picks into the draft, and no surprise here, Shohei Ohtani, the number 1 player in a daily lineups league. That's going to be the call. He is projected in the draft room for 850 points. But I do want to ask you, do you expect much from Shohei Ohtani as a pitcher this year?
I think that with the depth of the Dodgers' entire pitching staff, it would be very easy for them to be extremely conservative with him this year. So as far as expectations, I think, second half of the year, I do think that he'll pitch and pitch well, but I bet they'll baby him. And I think that anybody that is expecting more than, a dozen or 15 starts is maybe likely to be disappointed.
Yeah, I agree with that. And they've already shut him down from throwing this spring. So he'll pick that up probably sometime after the season starts. And, there's some risk that there's going to be some time off when he does start pitching on the hitting side to try to keep him fresh. So there's a little bit of risk there, but I think any daily lineups league, he's still the obvious number 1 pick. And frankly, he's arguably the obvious number 1 pick in any draft if he can do anything close to what he did last year. Then we had Aaron Judge as the number 2 pick. He was the number 2 player in this format, even with strikeouts being worth that extra half point. We had Jose Ramirez, Juan Soto, who is the number 2 projected player in the draft room in this format. Bobby Witt loses a little bit with the extra half point for strikeouts, although he really isn't a bad strikeout rate guy. Do you think Bobby Witt at number 5 is actually overthinking it that he dropped a little too low?
I absolutely, yes. I think that I probably would have taken him 2nd or 3rd in this format. I mean, the biggest thing I think, and you know this, about points leagues is that every single format that you're going to play is different.
Yep.
And there are always little things that you can exploit. I think that's the big difference when you're talking about roto style formats versus point formats. There's always going to be some movement of player rankings based on whatever format you're going through, whatever is valued in that.
Yeah, we had Kyle Tucker go number 6 And then you took Mookie Betts. Was that the obvious choice for you, or were you picking between a couple different people?
I had 6 players that I was happy to get at 7th, and Betts was the last of the 6. So yeah, it was sort of, I had 2 or 3 guys that I thought I'd be choosing between. I believe you took Skubal right after me.
Yes.
Yeah, that would have been where I went next. So yeah.
Okay. Who among the first 6 was not in that 7? Or was that? No, I got that wrong. Right? Or no, you said there were 6 you wanted at number 7, right?
And I was at 7th.
So who got
Jose
pushed
Ramirez
up?
for me?
Okay.
I had him ranked more around 9 or 10 in this format.
Okay.
So it's not that much of a reach. Jose Ramirez is great, and third base is a weaker position, but I had him ranked a little bit lower than that.
All right. I'm going to try something out because this is a format where I feel like hitter values are suppressed a little bit more so than any other scoring format. Pitchers really make up the gap. So I am going to go. Can you call it pocket aces if you're picking 7th, or is that just 12, 13? But I did start Tarek Skubal and Logan Gilbert as my top 2 picks. Is that dumb?
I don't think so at all. I was I talked to Frank a little bit yesterday, and then I was looking through this format because this year actually do not have any ESPN teams.
Okay.
So I was looking through and I thought, there are only about 18 hitters that are worth at a certain threshold that I was looking at. And there are almost as many starting pitchers that are over that threshold. The peak isn't the same, but this level that I was looking at, 400 points, I think, for the year projected, there were almost as many starting pitchers that were there. So I thought, going pitching heavy, this might be one instance to do that with this particular scoring format.
Yeah, and nobody else has really done that so far. We had Yordan Alvarez, number 9, Vladimir Guerrero, number 10, Corbin Carroll at 11, and then at the 12-13 turn, we had Gunnar Henderson and Paul Skeens. Do you think Gunnar Henderson falls too much? Any worry about this intercostal strain?
I don't have a big negative feeling about it right now. I think, again, a lot of these guys in the spring, they're just, you get 20, 30 at bats and you're good. So I think the Orioles are being really cautious with him. He's obviously just a linchpin of their offense at this point, even in just his 3rd or 4th year. I think that he's going to be fine. He thinks he's going to be fine. He says he's going to be fine. I also think that the last week of spring training games, I think we'll see him in there.
Yeah, the average time missed for an intercostal strain based on when he suffered the injury would put him on the field in about a week from now, which would give him, maybe 3 or 4 games at the end of spring training to get back up to speed before opening day. So as long as he hits that, I think we're fine. The pick after that, Paul Skeens leads off round 2, Francisco Lindor. The next pick, Zach Wheeler. Fernando Tatis drops to the 4th pick of the 2nd round. I went Logan Gilbert, as I said, starting with Tarek Skubal and Logan Gilbert. You go Garrett Crochet at number 6 in round 2. Any concern in a points league about the volume with Garrett Crochet? He threw 145 innings last season. First time in his life that he'd thrown more than 70 innings in a season. He's a bust for me, but obviously the talent is maybe the best pitcher in baseball upside.
Yeah, I think so. I really wanted Logan Gilbert, to be perfectly candid. So you grabbed him. I think Logan Gilbert could be SP1 this year. I really do. That's one of the few bets that I've made for season-long awards. I bet I love the odds on Gilbert for the AL Cy Young. I mean, what's this competition? It's Skubal. So yeah, I think that he's the clear number 2 choice, and the odds had him lower than that. So I love Gilbert. Crochet for me, upside, yeah, same as all the guys that were taken before him. I think the upside is right there. Yes, the downside is significant, and probably if we were actually playing this for money, I would not have taken Crochet. But there's no reason not to be aggressive with the way that we're doing this. And Crochet for me was the last guy that probably could give you ace level upside. And
we're seeing a lot of starting pitchers in round 2, which if you've drafted at other sites, other formats, it might be a little shocking. This feels like back, 6 or 7 years ago on CBS when starting pitchers still threw 200 innings and volume was the biggest factor for starting pitchers. And you would routinely see a ton of 2nd, 3rd round pitchers. Not so much these days. Now it's mostly starting in the 3rd round, but we saw after you took Garrett Crochet with the 6th pick, Ketel Marte goes off, but then Corbin Burns, Cole Reagans, Dylan Cease right in a row. Who's your favorite of that three? Burns, Ragans, and Cease.
We actually just touched on this on a podcast yesterday. I am not a Dylan Cease guy. I'm really an anti-walk guy when it comes to analyzing starting pitchers at this point, because with the change in stolen base rules the last couple of years, I think walks are even more penalized than they always have been. So for me, it's Ragans. Ragans is the best guy of those three as far as I like the situation he's in. Burns going to Arizona from Baltimore, which had the nice fences last year, maybe not so much this year. I think that Ragans has the best upside and the best floor of those three. Dylan
Cease and Blake Snell, for me, are the two pitchers that I just can't watch if I'm going to analyze them fairly, because I hate the roller coaster ride of watching them pitch. It drives me crazy. And I know that if I'm watching Dylan Cease and he has one of those like first innings where he just can't find the strike zone, I just can't help but think this guy is terrible. I don't want him ever on my team.
I 100% understand what you're saying. I have a soft spot for Snell because he probably won me the playoffs last year.
There you go.
So, I just think he's outstanding. But yeah, it can get pretty ugly. And the first half of last year, he was awful. He just couldn't find the strike zone. And those guys, that's the thing, right? Mechanically, they're a little bit wacky. There's a lot of moving parts, especially with Snell. And he gets in these funks for 6 weeks, 8 weeks, where he's walking 6 guys in 4 innings, and you just can't get deep enough to get the win. It's problematic.
The thing with Blake Snell that always makes him so hard to analyze is it's a different explanation every year, right? Like one year it's like his changeup was terrible. And then the next year his changeup's the best pitch. I think last year his changeup was his best pitch.
Yep.
And so it's like, it's a different version of Blake Snell. You always have to ride the like 5 ERA in May that inevitably happens to get to the good point. So the thing I always tell people, it's not that Blake Snell's a bad pick, but you've got to know yourself and your temperament and how, because there is always a point in the year where we start to get questions. Can I drop Blake Snell? I'm dropping Blake Snell. I'm tired of this. And it's just, that's going to happen. And you've got to know that it's going to be fine eventually. It's just, you got to be able to ride the ride. And some people don't have the temperament for it, but let's catch up on some of the picks. Bryce Harper was the 11th pick of round 2, followed by Freddie Freeman, Blake Snell with the first pick of round 3, Manny Machado, Anthony Santander. That's an interesting one. It might just be, this is a format personally that it's been a long time since I've played a league on ESPN. So and I think they refreshed their scoring format like 4 or 5 years ago. So it's really, really weird to me. I'm looking at the rankings and like Luis Arias is the 34th pick. And given how much you lose for strikeouts, that probably makes sense, even though he is frankly a pretty marginal player everywhere else. So it's interesting. I would guess, Santander for a power hitter doesn't strike out a ton. So maybe that's a decent call. What do you think of that pick?
I really just am not a Santander fan. I look at the exit velocity and just the massive pull and fly ball that he requires to continue to hit this number of home runs. And I keep thinking, much like I did with Brian Dozier back in the day, this gravy train is going to stop sooner or later, and I keep being wrong. So, being too early is indistinguishable from being wrong. So I'm just always wrong on him, but I can't, I know the year I jump in, he's going to hit like 21 homers, and that'll be that.
Yeah, he traded some batting average for power last season. I would expect we see a little bit of a flip-flop there. Toronto's been a weird place to hit over the past couple of years. It used to seem like a pretty good home run park, especially, but the past couple of years, maybe the past 4 years since they changed the configuration of the seating, it's played a little weird. So I'm not sure how he's going to play, but that's probably a little bit of a reach. And then you've got Chris Sale, William Contreras, just an all-around edge at the catcher position. Jackson Chourio, because the plate discipline is not so great, maybe he falls in this format, but it's one of those things where you're gonna have to draft Jackson Chourio ahead of what he did last year, certainly. So any pick with him is a bet on him taking a step forward. We've got Emmanuel Clase as the 7th pick in round 3. Rafael Devers was my pick, and I've been pretty down on Rafael Devers. But I'm starting to talk myself into the concerns about him and the health of the shoulder maybe just being an attempt to save face. Like the team wants him at DH, and I'm kind of thinking there's some behind the scenes like, oh yeah, we're going to say your shoulder's hurt so that you can't play third base, and kind of make it so that, oh, we told he would be our third baseman, he just can't play it. Oh no, but he's going to be our DH. What do you think of that?
He's your guy. You got to protect him publicly.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you're absolutely right with that. I mean, there's nothing to go on really other than supposition there. But I really kind of feel like, yeah, they're just kind of cushioning him a little bit from public relations standpoint and just letting him do what's best for the team in a way that it looks like it's nobody's fault.
And I did want to pause on your pick, which was Emmanuel Clase. How do you feel about relievers in this format specifically?
In this format, I think that they are rather valuable. Mm-hmm. So I'm okay with grabbing some relievers. In fact, Frank and I were joking about it. Like, you could pick 4 closers and 3 middle relievers and survive in this format if your offense is strong enough.
Yeah, because you do get 2 points for holds, you get 2 points for saves. So, those relievers who are in between roles actually still have some value because of the holds, and you get 2 points for wins. So it's not like wins are so much more valuable than saves. And, the -2 for an earned run, it can compound. The really bad starts for starters in this format, especially, you're going to get a lot of negative points in a way that in CBS, because the innings and the strikeouts matter more, and do you get quality start points in this or no?
Not in this one, I don't think.
Okay, so that also, bridges the gap between starters and closers relative to the CBS format. After Rafael Devers, we had Adley Rutschman. I expect a big bounce back from him. What about you?
Yeah, I do as well. I think he's just a great hitter. I love the way he manages the strike zone. He probably knows the zone as well as any hitter in baseball, and he's still so young. Really impressive. In this format in particular, I think he's quite valuable.
The thing about about Rutschman over the past few years, early in his career, has been he's a better points league player than a roto player because he doesn't hit over the fence power. But one, they're moving the fences in left field, which will help him a little bit, but probably not too much. But the bigger thing for me is through the end of June, he was on a 30 homer pace last year. He arguably looked like, if not for Aaron Judge, one of the AL MVP front runners. Then he took a foul tip off the hand, missed one day, kept playing through it, but there was a clear decline in his production. So I'm willing to write that off. All right, let's catch up. Marcus Semien, Corey Seager, Matt Olson was the final pick of the 3rd round, expecting the bounce back from him. This is, I think, maybe the most notable, or one of the most notable, and that's Elly De La Cruz falling to the 1st pick of the 4th round. And honestly, that might even be a little bit higher than he's likely to finish, unless you think he's going to take a big step forward as a hitter. And that's really one of the biggest differences in this format, even from a CBS league where we drafted earlier. He's more like a late 1st rounder in that. Mm-hmm. Here, I think he was like barely a top 60 finisher last year, if I'm remembering correctly.
I have him ranked in the 4th. So I think he went kind of around where I would put him. But I think it does sort of presuppose some improvement in plate discipline and contact ability, which, who knows? He's a free swinger.
Yeah, someone said that Frank we can't say tweak when we're talking about batting stances because someone heard it and thought he got hurt. Elly De La Cruz made a change to his tweak is the right word. He made a small change to his batting stance. He's standing a little more upright at the plate. And the hope is that he's going to cut down on strikeouts, be more of a consistent power hitter. It's been very hit or miss for him throughout his career. They also announced today that he's going to be the number 3 hitter for the Reds. Any concern that drops his stolen base total, or is he just such an outlier there in terms of skill that it doesn't matter?
I think it's more the latter. I think that he is just so fast and talented at stealing bases. But, if you've got Spencer Steer in front of you, who is fast, but not Elly fast. I think that it impacts him 5 steals, something like that. I wouldn't expect much more than that, though.
Yeah, I don't think like the 80 steal dreams are likely to happen because he'll lose 40 or so, 45 plate appearances over the course of the season if he hits third the whole time instead of first. So, there's some drawbacks there, but if we get a 90 run, 95 RBI season, probably makes up for it a little bit. After Ellie De La Cruz, Alex Bregman, one of the risers in this format. Ronald Acuna, we found out today the expectation, he's going to be ready early to mid-May, which I think that's mostly been the expectation. How are you viewing Acuna?
I was thinking May 1st. So now this sounds a little bit to me like it's going to be a week or two later than that. I had already kind of pushed him pretty far down my board. I don't think he's going to run much. I really don't.
That would be
nice
the
to be
concern.
Disappointed there, but.
And the concern there is because when in 22, when he came back from the knee injury for the first time, he made up for his lack of hitting by running a ton. He was on like a 45 steal pace that year, but he didn't hit as well. If there's some concerns about the bat and he doesn't run, it could be more like a third round type of player, even spread out over a full season. After him, Framber Valdez. I took Jackson Merrill, who is discounted a little bit in a points league because he had like a 4% walk rate last year. He was one of the most walk-averse players, but he's got such a strong hit tool. It's a little bit of a bet on him taking a big step forward, but he was close to that 400-point threshold last year, 388 last year, just ahead of someone like Jose Altuve, who you took. Would you have taken Merrill if he was there?
Yes. Yeah, I would have. I love the kid. I think he's great.
He gives me like Christian Yelich vibes. Obviously doesn't walk as much, but just like that super strong all-around skill set. I love Jackson Merrill.
And the age too. He's so young.
Yeah. All right. I am going to take a reliever, Josh Hader, who took a big step forward last year in terms of the innings. Remember, he used to be a guy who threw 80 innings every year. We'd get a bunch of 2-inning outings. The last couple of years with the Brewers, I think he actually told the team ahead of his free agency, I'm only working 1 inning. But last year, I think he had like 7 or 8 multi-inning outings. So the volume was back a little bit. I think he's an elite closer. Let's catch up a little more. Trey Turner, Luis Castillo, Pete Alonso. I do think hoping for a bounce back this season. Do you think that's going to come for Pete Alonso?
Boy, you always worry about guys coming off a big contract signing. Yeah. It's very cynical to say, but there can be a little bit of complacency that seeps in. It's like, okay, I'm okay now. I'm good. I don't have to go, nuts every single day to make sure that my family's taken care of for the rest of their lives.
The one thing that he has going for him in that regard, though, is he does have that opt-out, I think, after each of the first 3 seasons or each of the 3 seasons of that deal. So there is that added incentive of, hey, if I have a big year this year, I can opt out and maybe get that $200 million contract I was hoping for.
Yeah, that's a good point. I do think he really loves being in New York, though, with the Mets. Yeah. I think it was always kind of a little bit of a smoke screen just to kind of push the price up a little bit that, oh, no, I might not be coming back.
I think in both regards, because at one point the Mets, they started leaking like, we're good. We don't need him. We love Brett Beatty. He's our third baseman. We don't care if Pete Alonso comes back. And it never felt sincere on either side. It was always inevitable that they were going to come back together. And it was just a question of finding the right price. Closing out the 4th round, Pablo Lopez, Max Fried, and Steven Kwan. Steven Kwan, another one. If he doesn't have that injury last year, he had a career year in a lot of ways, especially power, but really struggled in the second half. Do you think the batting average decline we saw in the second half was anything to worry about, or do you think it was mostly the injury?
I think he was just banged up. He's another guy that just controls the strike zone so well. And the contact ability is almost at Arise level. So, yeah, I think that you'll see a nice little bounce back from Kwan. The problem is that Kwan is one of those guys, I don't love drafting him. He's a high floor, low ceiling guy.
Yeah, there's only so much you can do when you only hit when your career high, I believe, is 10 home runs.
Right.
That was followed up with Luis Arias. So a clear point there of emphasis for wide range of outcomes, who ironically drafted 2 players with very, very slim ranges of outcomes in Luis Arias and Steven Kwan. And we had Aaron Nola, Devin Williams, Austin Riley, Jarren Duran really falling in this one. What do you make of that?
A lot of Ks, but boy, I
Yeah.
love Jaron Duran, and I feel like, we talk about this a lot on our pod, that second or third full year of playing time for a young player, you can get some pretty big jumps in ability to manage the strike zone and things like that. So you could see a bit of a pop from Jaron Duran this year. I think in most formats his price reflects this, but I love Jaron Duran. I think he's a good player.
Yeah, he's a tough one just because while this is just his second year, he is already 28. And so that was one of the things when I was looking at the Red Sox, I was like, do they look at trading Jaron Duran this offseason just because he's a little older? Does his timeline match up with the big prospects? They ended up keeping him. It's a great park. It's a tough park for lefties to hit for power, but it really boosts batting average, which helps him overcome those strikeout woes. And I think that lineup's going to be really good. If Rafael Devers is himself, that lineup could be awesome.
I think it could, and you've got so much coming up through the pipeline that can be impactful too, that if certain guys struggle or whatever, you've got other options. I really like what Boston has done the last couple of years while kind of drifting toward the bottom of the division for you.
Yeah, Julio Rodriguez, another one of the big fallers here. You could argue this is a reach for him in this format, although I do expect the big step forward after a really disappointing year. Last year, the biggest issue, he just couldn't hit. He couldn't get the ball out of the park on the pull side. That was where most of his power had come from. And it was whether it was he just wasn't hitting it quite as close to the foul pole as he was, just more into the power alleys. He was just a little bit behind. But he's talked this spring about getting as many plate appearances as he can, both in games and in either the traject machine or minor league live batting practice. He did a live batting practice against Andres Munoz a couple days ago. That was when we first saw that new changeup from Andres Munoz that looks like it could be an otherworldly pitch if he can command it at all.
Devin Williams, like.
Yeah, it looks that kick change for him. Matt Brash, when he first threw it in when Munoz first threw it in a bullpen session, Matt Brash said that was the best pitch he'd ever seen. And it was literally the first one he threw. So, and Matt Brash knows a little something about nasty pitches. So that was fun. You took Mason Miller here. I followed up with Josh Hader. You did take Mason Miller ahead of Hader. Do you expect more? I think Miller only had 28 saves last season, but obviously the strikeout rate is out of this world. He might be my favorite pitcher to watch in baseball.
Yeah, and I think you get the multiple inning appearances that you mentioned that Hader threw a bunch back in last year. I think you get those from Miller as well as a converted starter. So I think Mason Miller, I would have to agree as far as electric stuff and just joy watching them work at their craft. He's up there for me too, for sure.
And he's like built like an NFL free safety. Like he's got giant shoulders. So he's like super intimidating out there. He's so much fun to watch. Yeah. We got Yoshinobu Yamamoto after that, Michael King, Logan Webb, Ozzie Albies. So what you are seeing here is, like we talked about, those starting pitchers getting pushed up the board. Logan Webb, his ADP in your standard, your NFBC leagues and stuff, he goes outside of the top 100 a lot, which I think reflects new depth of the position. Maybe Logan Webb being a little undervalued because he's boring, but last year, 382 points was even better in 2023. So I think that's a fine pick. Ozzie Albies, hoping for the bounce back. We got Ozzie Albies and Wyatt Langford at the 5-6 turn. We'll catch up. And then I do want to talk about Bailey Ober a little bit Wyatt Langford a little bit, but we've been playing catch up the whole time. And I feel like I need to get us up to speed. Bailey Ober, Will Smith, Edwin Diaz. I took Josh Naylor. You took Alec Boehm. Boehm, another guy, much better in this format, right?
I think so, and I think he's underrated in most formats. He's got excellent exit velocity, excellent line drive rate, really controls the strike zone well. He's in a great lineup, hitting in the middle of the lineup. The only thing that's missing for him is well, aside from speed, is over the fence power. But I feel like he's one of these guys that one of these years, instead of 50 doubles and 15 homers, you're going to get like 35 doubles and 30 homers. Everybody's going to go like, oh, what happened? Well,
I can see
one degree of launch angle. That's what happened.
Yeah, 1 degree of launch angle, hitting it a little closer to the foul pole.
Yep.
Could see that. Tyler Glass now, he's awesome when he's on the field. It's just last year was a career high in innings. I don't think he even got to he got to 134, I believe. So it's just hard to see that big step forward. But on a per start basis, there aren't more than 8-9 pitchers better than Tyler Glasnow in the entire game.
Absolutely.
Vinny Pasquantino. I took Josh Naylor right before Vinny P, but they are very similar players. A lot of RBIs because they make a lot of contact. Not as many home runs. I think, Josh Naylor's 31 homers last year. Probably not likely to repeat, but a great lineup, great ballpark. George Kirby at 69. It just comes down to how long he's out. If he's back by mid-April, could be awesome. But it does remind me a little of Kevin Gausman last year, where Gausman missed a little time. He was back fairly quickly, but he just wasn't quite the same. He just kind of muddled along all year. What are your concerns with George Kirby?
Yeah, I don't have a real good feel on the George Kirby injury right now. I think it could easily be something like that, but he is a lot younger than Gausman was.
Mm-hmm.
So you'd have some hope that you wouldn't get that same just kind of dog of a year where he's just kind of grinding through it as an SP3 or something like that.
Yeah, man, this draft room, it's really throwing me off. The list of players showing up, especially because I don't have, when we draft on CBS, my rankings are in the room. I can just go on that. That's super easy. That's a great feature.
Right.
But here I'm all thrown off. I'm looking at the board and Alec Burleson or Brendan Donovan's here. That's weird, but maybe the scoring format makes it justifiable.
He doesn't strike out.
Yeah, it doesn't strike out. Joe Ryan was the 70th pick, third to last pick of round 6. Marcell Ozuna, Justin Steele to close out round 6. Then Bryce Miller. I think that's a great value here. What do you think of Bryce Miller at the first pick of the 7th round?
I think I have Bryce Miller as my ace in one league. So, yeah, I think it's a great pick down here.
Yeah, he is one of those guys, an elite whip, which matters less in this format than it does in Roto, but could be, he certainly was an ace in the second half of last season.
Mm-hmm.
Willy Adames, Yainer Diaz. I have some concerns about Yainer Diaz, just the playing time with the Christian Walker signing and with Yordan Alvarez playing full-time DH. How many times is he going to be in the lineup in those spots? But great hitter. He's kind of the new Salvador Perez with his very aggressive swing. If he can put together the batting average from last year and the power from 2023, you're talking about maybe the number one catcher. Certainly the upside there.
Yeah, I agree. But I think that there is some cause for concern there, we'll say. I might put Diaz down around number 4 in standard scoring formats. I do think that there's probably a little bit of regression there. He was sort of fortunate with his BABIP for a guy that's really slow and a right-handed pull hitter.
Yeah, I also he's the number 2 catcher in NFBC leagues now. He's like a top 55 pick. That feels way too early. I couldn't take him ahead of Adley Rutschman. I think he's closer to Salvador Perez and Wilson Contreras.
Will Smith too, I think. I think all those guys you can put in a little batch there, I think.
All right, we got Kyle Schwarber, going to get on base a ton. He was a 400-point player. This feels like a good value. Isaac Paredes, anybody who listens to FBT, if you're watching this stream, we all love Isaac Paredes. We think that the move to Houston was just about the best case scenario after Chicago being just about the worst place that he could have landed with that 55 foot left field foul pole. So I love the upgrade there. We got Sonny Gray, Michael Harris, just got to stay healthy. And, the tools, he's one of the fastest players in baseball. He hit 2 home runs on Wednesday that went a combined 880 feet.
Yep.
Love to see that. He hits the ball really hard, doesn't elevate it a ton, but the thing you have to remember about Michael Harris, I think he just turned 24.
Exactly.
Yeah. So
I think Harris has as much upside as just about anybody that's not a first round pick.
Yep. No, I think if he had a random 30-30 season, it wouldn't really surprise me.
Yep. Agree.
I went with Brian Reynolds, another just the way I describe him is just eat your oatmeal. Like there's nothing interesting about him. He's going to hit 260 to 270. He's going to hit 20 to 23 home runs. I think he's been at 24 home runs exactly 3 of the past 4 years. The one outlier was 27. So it's like, if that's the ceiling and that's the floor, it's a pretty small margin. Brendan Donovan,
high floor guys too. I mean, they're important.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I think we can undervalue them, but Brian Reynolds in a Roto league, especially, someone I almost never draft, just because I am chasing a little more upside in that range of the draft. We had Brandon Donovan, like we talked about, big boost in this format. Is there concern about him not being an everyday player in St. Louis? They've got so many guys that they feel very aimless.
Outfield, but I still think that there's going to be room for him. He'll find his way into the lineup 5 days out of 6, 6 days out of 7.
I would hope so. Yeah. Let's go with another pitcher here for me, Shota Imanaga, who I do have some concerns about, but we'll talk about. Ryan Helsley led the National League in saves last year. Don't expect him to save. I think it was like 64% of their games or something last year. It was by far the highest rate in baseball. But he's obviously awesome. Zach Allen, I think, is being kind of unfairly maligned this season. What do you think about Zach Allen?
I love Zach Allen. I mean, I had him as a borderline SP1 last year. Certainly not there this year, but I think, if he's your probably SP3 in this format, that's fantastic. Allen has some excellent skills.
Yeah, his velocity's been down so far in spring. I don't know how much to worry about that with a veteran like Gallen, just because he probably isn't focusing on maxing out velocity, and he's never been a max out velocity guy anyway. It's always more like 94 than 97 for him. So he's got 2 weeks until opening day. I would assume he's going to be fine, but I think people were already kind of out on Zach Allen, and they're looking for reasons to be more out. And he's dropping to like 130 in NFC drafts right now. He's like SP 40
just
in some
crazy.
drafts. It seems unfair.
Yeah,
this was a borderline ace the previous 2 years before 2024.
Yeah.
Ryan Walker, big time strikeout upside that he showed last year. If he holds on to that job and is as good as he looked, he could be an excellent. Freddie Peralta, this is an interesting one because I saw the other day his mechanics were off last year. He talked, I hadn't seen any discussion of this, but at some point last season, he had to move from the third base side of the rubber to the first base side of the rubber because he said he wasn't able to throw his fastball to righties the way he wanted to, and he had to move on the mound to get the looks that he was looking for. But he fixed his mechanics, thinks that he's going to be better this season. I'm a little more interested in him than I have been. He's kind of a little bit of a poor man's Blake Snell, where like there are frustrations along the way, but you're going to get a lot of strikeouts and the end results are going to be pretty good. So Freddie Peralta is someone I'm kind of interested in. We're almost caught up. We're in the same round as the draft. Cody Bellinger goes 86. Raisel Iglesias, Christian Walker dealing with that oblique. Have you downgraded Christian Walker at all? He hasn't been swinging yet, but still has a chance to be ready for opening day.
He is a guy. I mean, I've got so many leagues going at this point, and I don't have any Christian Walker. I just somehow, if I don't get Vlad Guerrero or Bryce Harper, I just end up waiting on first base for an interminable period of time and end up with like Nathaniel Lowe or something like that. Nathaniel
Lowe, sneaky viable option in a 15-team league, especially. Nobody wants him.
Yeah, I don't get it. Like he's a very solid hitter.
I kind of don't get what the Rangers were thinking there with the basically trading him for Jake Berger. I get Berger hits for big power, but Nate Lowe's a very good defensive player. He gets on base. He kind of does everything Jake Berger doesn't.
Yeah, and you've already got a Berger clone in Adolis Garcia that's tons of power and tons of Ks and right-handed pull. Do you really want another one of those guys? I thought it was an odd move as well. And normally I like what the Rangers do. Yeah,
Shota Imanaga, I took him with the was that the sixth pick of round 8. You went with Roki Sasaki. I'm gonna have FOMO because I'm not gonna draft him this year, and it's gonna be tough when I watch him pitch. It's gonna be real tough.
Much of him. I have so much. I just couldn't. After watching him, I just couldn't let him go. I couldn't watch him on another team, like you're saying.
Yeah, that's one I kind of the opposite of Snell and Cease, where when I'm not watching him, I'm like, it's fine. He's going to be limited. There are questions about the fastball shape, all that stuff. And then I watched him at the first start and I was like, oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that's why. Yeah.
No, exactly. I get it.
But the velo's down a little too. So I do have my concerns.
Yeah, he was averaging more like 96 in his second spring start. It was more like 98 in the first one. And he's one of those guys, because he doesn't have great shape on his fastball, the difference between 96 and 98 might really matter for Roki Sasaki.
I think you're right. And it does, there's some fear there for me, to be honest.
Yeah. But hey, life's a roller coaster. You got it. You got to feel alive.
He will make you do that.
Speaking of, Jacob deGrom goes with the very next pick. And that's one that, he usually goes 40, 50 picks earlier than that in a lot of drafts. And I don't even think that's a scoring format thing here. It's just, he barely pitched last year. The projections are always going to be low. If he stays healthy, though, he's gonna blow out any reasonable projection. Even though we know they're going to limit his innings, he's probably not going to throw more than 140 or so, but they could be really, really good innings. Brent Rooker goes next. Hunter Green, Tanner Bybee, a little bit of a forgotten guy, but rock solid with room to grow if he makes a step forward. Cal Raleigh, Mike Trout, another one. If you want to feel alive, he's going to be one of the best hitters in baseball for as long as he's out there. And if it's 30 games, that's probably not going to work out for you. If it's 130 games, that's going to be a great pick. Yeah, that's all it comes down to. We got Jazz Chisholm, first pick of the 9th round. Ian Happ, Brandon Nimmo could be a great pick for this format if he's healthy. It's just the foot and the knee. I know our Scott White, no real concerns about the injury. He'll take any dip. No dip here. What do you think of Brandon Nimmo?
Boy, I think that plantar fasciitis, man, I mean, that feels like the kind of thing that's going to be managed all year. That doesn't go away. So I have my concerns, and Brandon Nimmo is one of my favorites. He's a guy I typically end up with because he just has upside. I love guys that draw walks, control strike zone. Nimmo, another guy that does a really good job of that, top of a decent order. But, man, if he's not going to be running with that foot, I think that does ding his value quite a bit.
Live podcasting, folks. I was on mute. Do you think James Wood is a value at 100, or do you think that's a reach?
I believe I have James Wood. This will be the first league I don't have him in.
Okay.
So in this format, it's tougher because he is going to swing and miss a lot.
Yeah.
But the upside of that Washington outfield with Wood and Cruz, I think those two kids could both be first, second round picks next year.
Yeah, no, I fully agree. I'm way in on Cruz. He's going a lot later than Wood because he showed a little less at the major league level. But, the thing about Wood that you have to keep in mind for points leagues, we talked about this in the head-to-head points mock that we did earlier, but he is, for as much as he's going to swing and miss and as much of a free swinger as he appears to be, he was actually really patient last year. He walked 39 times in 79 games. That's an 80 walk pace. I like James Wood getting 79 games last year because I can just double his numbers and it makes it really easy to do a full season projection. It was like 28 steals, 18 home runs, 39 walks. If he just does that, you're probably good with him as the 100th pick, let alone the growth that we're projecting for him. And obviously, I mean, you're talking, I think it was 95th percentile average exit velocity, something like that. He hit the ball super hard. The way I look at it is he was so totally non-optimized as a rookie, like hit the ball on the ground, did not pull the ball. I think he had 2 or 3 pulled balls in the air the entire season. I think 2 of them were home runs. And it's just the fact that he held his own while being not at all optimized. It's just, man, what if it clicks?
Well, yeah, I think that's the thing with Wood, right? I mean, you expect more than 20 homers. I know just doubling his stats gets you to 18. I expect 25. I think there's got to be the first thing for young players. They don't want to strike out a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So they do work on meeting the ball, hitting it on the ground. And, the organization fed into that with him. Yeah. I think they'll let the leash out a little bit this year for him. Yeah.
And elite athlete. I mean, pound for pound, maybe one of the best athletes in baseball. He's massive, but he was like 81st percentile on sprint speed. We had Sandy Alcantara go off the board after him at 101. Hunter Brown, Jung-Hoo Lee could be one of those Luis Arias, Stephen Kwan types. He's going to hit either leadoff or third for the Giants, so there should be really good counting stat opportunities there. If he hits 285 with 15 homers this season, I really wouldn't be surprised. Could be a very useful player. And I'm about to auto pick again, but I made it. I had to turn the sound off, so I'm not getting those notifications. Otherwise, it'll come through every time. And I did auto pick Nolan Arenado in the previous round. Don't love that, although his swing speed is up 4 miles per hour this spring. We know that if he's got that lift and pull swing like Isaac Paredes, and if he can get back just a little bit of that quality of contact, he's not that far removed from 27, 28 homers.
I could see the power there. I question. I still feel like his whole Colorado tenure has continued to inflate his value because people remember that so vividly.
Yeah. Once he moved over to St. Louis, it was the batting average collapsed. He's been like a 260 hitter at best there, but the power was still there the first couple of years. So I'm hoping. I mean, now that I drafted him, I'm certainly hoping for 24 homers, 25 homers.
You can get that.
Yeah, I wasn't planning on it. After him, Jerks Profar, Seiya Suzuki, Christian Yelich, coming back from the back injury. I mean, betting on a 32, 33-year-old coming off back surgery doesn't feel like a great bet, but he was an MVP caliber player last year. He was a first-round caliber hitter when he was on the field. Are you drafting Christian Yelich at all?
Yeah, I am. If you follow Will Carroll at all, I know Will a little bit, and he feels like these discectomies, they do work for these elite athletes a little more than they work for like the general sedentary public, like here. So I do have some faith. Yelich says he feels better than he's felt in a long time. You take that with a grain of salt, but I do, based on Will's discussion of it, I really feel like this could be a successful recovery period for him from that back that is chronic.
Yeah, I mean, it's been an issue really for like 4 or 5 years for him, and he finally had that great surgery. Yeah. Salvador Perez was the last pick of the 9th round. We are making good time. We might have to kill some time after this draft just to get Frank and Scott back in the room. We got Spencer Schwellenbach, the first pick of round 10. Jack Flaherty. Who do you prefer out of those two?
I actually prefer Schwellenbach, but they're both excellent, and I feel like they both dropped quite a bit.
Yeah, I feel like Flaherty might be getting a little bit unfairly dinged because we had the Yankees turning down the trade at the deadline because of concerns about his back. Then the weird free agency, there was just no talk about him for so long. He ends up re-signing in Detroit, where he revitalized his career last year, and he got Frankie Montas money. Like that was so weird after how good Jack Flaherty was last season. Yeah, so like I don't know. I get it that the market is skeptical of him, but I love the landing spot in Detroit. I think the pitching coach there, Chris, I can't remember his name, but he's done really good work the last few years, and it's a great ballpark if nothing else. CJ Abrams, next pick, he's one of those guys that really gets hurt by this format. The plate discipline's not great, doesn't walk, but even then, 321 points last year, that's fine. That's useful. And if you think that there's room to grow, he was really good in the first half, was pulling the ball, hitting it with power in the air, couldn't keep it up. But if he can do that for a full year, I do think there's a lot of upside there. Grayson Rodriguez, what's your concern level with him coming off this elbow injury?
We're at DEFCON 5.
Yeah.
A couple of my best friends are big Orioles fans. They grew up in Baltimore, and we talk probably every week. And the one guy is just like, I think the season's over already because he just doesn't think Grayson's even going to put up 10 starts.
I hope that's not the case. He was one of my favorite breakout picks before all this, and then it just does feel a little bit like Kyle Bradish last year.
Yeah.
Where his was an elbow strain. Like they knew there was damage to the ligament. That is not the case for Grayson Rodriguez by all accounts. There's no like structural damage that they found when they looked into it, but he did get the cortisone shot, and it doesn't feel like it's going to go well. I know Scott's a little less concerned than I am, but I've moved Grayson Rodriguez outside of my top 200. I can't I can't bring myself to draft him unless it's a big discount. I think I took him like 175 in the head-to-head points league, where pitchers, especially, riskier pitchers, get pushed up because it's a shallower format. But yeah, that one concerns me a lot. I did take Dylan Cruz as we were talking about James Wood a little while ago. I think if you look at the skill set, the skill indicators for Dylan Cruz and Wyatt Langford, they look like pretty similar players. Langford better, and obviously we had that huge September to point to and say, concrete evidence that he's really good. Cruz didn't have that. He only had the 1 month at the major league level, though, and I thought the plate discipline was good. He just needs to elevate the ball and hit the ball a little more consistently. But where are you at on Cruz?
Yeah, I think you're right. And people forget that, we have this little bit of data that we saw at the major league level. He came into the year with less than 160 professional plate appearances.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the year, he's at the majors. So, talk about a learning curve. I thought it was pretty difficult for him. And it was disappointing, but he handled himself okay. I didn't think he looked overmatched. So the skill set's there. I feel like, first full season as a player, there'll probably be some growing pains still, but it's undeniable the talent level and the upside there.
All right, Yohan Duran is the next pick, 114 overall. And then the name that everybody in the chat was yelling about for, it seemed like 20 minutes straight, people were telling us to take Junior Caminero, and he finally goes off the board at 115. Relative to where he goes in pretty much every other draft, that's a big discount. And I know ESPN's a different scoring format. Maybe that explains the drop, but this is another one where if you're drafting him expecting him to be better than he was last season. And he was great in the Caribbean Series, 4 home runs in the final 22 games, has been good so far in the spring. Are you buying the Junior Caminero helium?
Yeah, especially if they give you like 10 points for home run celebrations. No doubt about it. I love it. Kid's electric. I mean, I think he's going to be a fantastic hitter. I just don't know if it's going to be this season, but I'd be willing to take, especially at that price, I'd be willing to take the gamble.
He reminds me that the comp I've gone with is like Marcell Ozuna, where early on in his career, it was obvious that the tools were there. And there were some inconsistencies in his swing. He didn't elevate as much as you want. He hit a lot of fly balls to the power alleys.
Yep.
And it was like, man, once he fine tunes that a little bit, that's what Caminero reminded me of, where he might hit a lot of loud outs, but if he figures it out even a little bit, we're talking about a potential 4-category superstar here. There won't be any steals, but in this format, that doesn't matter. And the plate discipline should be fine if he hits. Christopher Sanchez, the next pick, Kodai Senga, Yandy Diaz, Robert Suarez, and Teoscar Hernandez. I'm pretty concerned about Robert Suarez. Where are you on him?
Yeah, I'm with you. I am very concerned. I somehow end up with him because I typically am punting saves and then try to scrap them together at the end. Mm-hmm. So he's one of those guys that drops a lot, but they have a lot of options there. So I don't think they're going to be really slow to put the hook on him, so to speak.
Yeah, that's the problem, is he's so fastball dependent that if there's any drop off in the effectiveness of that pitch, and then they have Estrada, I think, is the 7th inning guy, and Jason Adam in the 8th. Those
Jason
are both
especially
really, really good closer caliber relievers. So I think there is some risk there. Starting off round 11, a guy that the FBT crew, we all love, Bo Bichette. He's falling too far. Has not been as good of a points league player as you would think, because there's not a lot of walks. But do you think this is a fine value for him, first pick of the 11th round?
Yeah, I think it's good enough.
Okay. Jordan Westburg, another one. If he takes that step forward, everyone's expecting it's going to be a steal. It's just the walk rate was very low for him. But what do you think about Jordan Westburg?
I actually love Jordan Westburg. My only hang up there is the number of mouths to feed in the Oriole infield. And that didn't really clear itself up much over the winter like I thought it might. So I feel like they are committed to him, and they may bounce him back and forth between second and third, but moving the fences in should help him, but it also helps one of his direct competitors in Kobe Mayo, maybe even a little bit more. So I worry a little bit about whether he's going to be more of a 450 at bat guy than a 550 to 600 at bat guy.
Mm-hmm.
But I think talent is good. I don't worry about that.
Yeah, he is expected to start at third base. He's got the ability to work at second base as well. So if he's hitting and Jackson Holiday isn't, hey, we can send Jackson Holiday back down. Kobe Mayo comes up. Jordan Westberg, congratulations, you're a second baseman again.
Yep.
But there is some concern because they do have so many options and they have arguably the top third base prospect in baseball, that if you do the opposite, if Westberg's not hitting, Holiday is, and Mayo forces the issue, there is some risk there. He's like a top 70 pick now, though, and that it's where I've got him ranked. But I used to be able to wait a little bit relative to my ranking when he was going in like the 90 to 100 range, and now there is no discount on Jordan Westberg. He was the 122nd pick in this one, but in a lot of roto drafts, especially, he goes a lot higher than that. He's probably a much better roto than points player. We got Nico Horner after that, Xander Bogaerts, Riley Green, Spencer Strider. It sounds like he might get into a Grapefruit League game here in the final 10 days or so of spring training. And well, if he looks like himself, if he's pumping 98-mile-an-hour fastballs past people, that price is going to skyrocket, right?
Yeah, and the rumor is that that's how he looks in backfield stuff or whatever. So I kind of expect it. I have been pushing him up my own draft rankings too. So I'm leaning toward it being a clean bill of health for him.
Another guy who is absolutely skyrocketing is Wilson Contreras. Not in this draft, only 127, but one catcher leagues you tend to see less of a premium. NFBC leagues, I think he's inside the top 65 now on average in the month of March.
I saw him going 5th or 6th probably a month and a half ago among catchers. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden he's like the clear third choice for people. So I'm just curious as to what they're seeing that I'm not. And I'm the one that took him here, but I just felt like he had dropped enough that it was time.
Yeah, absolutely. I went with Kevin Gausman, who I really can't figure out. His fastball velocity is up. The splitter movement is all weird this spring. Doesn't look like the same guy. Wonder if he can still be effective. I was talking to Eno Saris the other day, just asking him his thoughts about Gausman on Blue Sky. And he said, the splitter movement being down, it's getting a lot less drop on the pitch. It could be a concern, but the added velocity could help make up for that. So he still seems mostly in on Gausman. Gausman, the Stuff Plus metrics really like what he's done this spring. So I'm hedging my bets. He was someone I was kind of high on. I'll draft him if he falls a little bit in this format, and he's my number 5 SP here, or number 5 pitcher here. So a decent value there. Brandon Pfaadt, Randy Arozarena, Tanner Scott, Lawrence Butler, another one, goes way earlier than this, and that's this Team Trash Pandas just took Lawrence Butler and O'Neal Cruz back to back
in round 11 and 12.
Yeah, round 11 and 12. Those are 4th and 5th round picks in your roto leagues. Do you think those are good values here?
Boy, there is just so much in the way of problematic contact rate for both of them that I think they're probably appropriately valued here for this format, but super exciting players, both of them. They're a joy to watch. Yeah.
And, O'Neal Cruz, there are big holes in his swing. His plate discipline isn't as bad as you think. It's him and Ellie De La Cruz are both kind of similar, where it's not the swing decisions that are a problem. It's the swing. Like they'll pick the right pitches to swing at. They're not going to hit or swing at pitches outside of the zone too often. It's just they've got big holes in their swing because they're so big, because the levers are so long, that it's hard for them to make consistent contact. We've got after them Jared Jones, Lourdes Gurriel, Mason Wynn. I went with Matt McLain. That's the second time today that I've picked Matt McLain. He is a bust pick for me this season, but yeah,
why do you think that?
I'm kind of the outlier where I like him around 100 or later in roto drafts, especially. But for me, there's a couple things. One is just we have a really small sample size of him hitting at an elite level. If you look at his minor league track record, at AA, he hit like 230. The power and speed were there, but the batting average was really low. Then he's just bonkers in AAA. Before he got called up, he had like a 1080 OPS or something. at AAA. He was huge. Then he has that awesome 2023 season. But if you look under the hood, there's some pretty bad plate discipline in there. The quality of contact is more good than even very good. It's like 58th percentile hard hit rates and average exit velocity. Playing in that home park, maybe that doesn't matter, right? Maybe he's a 25 homer guy regardless. But then it's 2 straight season-ending injuries. And that's where usually at the NFBC, if you've ever been on the IL, just an immediate 3-round drop in price. We will never touch you if you stubbed your toe once. We're terrified of injuries. And then with Matt McLain, he has a season-ending oblique injury in September of 2023. Okay, that's not a huge deal, except last spring, that was still an issue. He was delayed at the beginning of last spring because of that oblique from September. And then obviously he has the shoulder and rib injuries last year and he doesn't play. If I felt more sure that he was going to be an impact bat, I could overlook the injuries. Or if the injuries weren't there, I could overlook my concerns about his bat. When it's both, that's where it's like, I got to pump the brakes a little bit, push him outside of the top 100, which just means I'm never going to draft him at this point.
Right. Okay. That makes sense. I love McLain this year. I mean, 2020 guy, as much as he's dropping.
Yeah.
He's a 2020 guy in like 90 or 100 games 2 years ago. So I just see the upside from the Roto League standpoint, but yeah, all those concerns that you're bringing up are totally legitimate, of course.
Yeah, it's one of the ones where I'm like, am I out of touch?
Am I the idiot here?
Yeah, like because everybody loves him so much, and I'm like, I can't quite get there, and I don't love being that far out on a limb on it, so it could be wrong. And look, I'm willing to draft him if the price is right. And it was 137th here, so I'll take that. After him, you took Lars Nootbaar. Is this the year? Does it finally happen?
It has to be, because I have him in like 5 leagues. I feel like out of all those guys that seem sort of, prospect-y or post-hype in the Cardinal outfield, he's the one that I think has the best skill set.
Yeah.
Doesn't have the power of Jordan Walker, but it doesn't have the speed of Victor Scott, but I think he's just a well-rounded, good professional hitter kind of a guy.
Yeah, he's like a B+ at everything. And it's just a question of, one, really, it's staying healthy. Because it feels very much like early career Tommy Pham, where you could really see, man, this guy is so talented and he just can't, I don't even want to say can't get out of his own way. He just can't stay on the field as consistently as we'd want. And that was the issue with Pham. But once he figured it out, he ended up having some really good seasons. So I could see that with Lars Nootbaar as well. He's a little bit older, but they still seem to like him. Brian Wu, a personal favorite of mine. Adolis Garcia coming back from that oblique. He did DH, I think, on Wednesday. So we seem like we're in good shape there. Keibert Ruiz makes a lot of contact. Decent starting catcher. You got to get one. I love Jeff Hoffman. I think he's going to be a superstar closer if he stays healthy. Carlos Rodon, good team. I think he's okay. I want him to be. I want to get like that San Francisco outcome again, and I just don't think we're going to. But I think he's fine. Andres Munoz. It's just, can we just let him get 35 saves? That's the only problem with Andres Munoz, is they just don't give him the full-time closer role. And I think he's as nasty as anyone in that Mariners bullpen. And
they play a lot of close games with a poor offense and great starting pitching.
Yep, that'll help. Felix Bautista, that's another one that a little bit of a mystery box, but if the stuff gets back to where it was in 2023, he was the best pitcher in the world on a per inning basis. There was nobody like him. Yep. We had Bowden Francis, Carlos Correa. I was circling Carlos Correa. When I took Matt McLain, it was either Carlos Correa or Matt McLain. I think with Correa, I think the season he had last year, I know the injuries were a problem, but he kind of proved to me that as long as he's on the field, he's going to be productive. And in a shallower format like this, I get it. In a 15-teamer, being out on him, he drops to like 240. in NFBC. I think that's one of the most obvious screaming values of the year, but I get it. It's harder to replace guys in that format. You don't have IL spots. In a shallow league like this, I will take Carlos Correa every single time, except when I took Matt McClain ahead of him, I guess. Xavier Edwards, Robbie Ray, who I pushed up the draft board in a huge way. I think on our podcast the other day, Nick Pollock said he's one of his Cy Young favorites in the NL if he stays healthy. So really like that one. And I'm about to time out again. I'll take Gabriel Moreno, who's having a really nice spring, hitting the ball hard. Maybe there's some breakout potential there. Tristan Casas, you went with Paul Goldschmidt. Are you expecting a bounce back from Paul Goldschmidt? Maybe we can call it a dead cat bounce from Paul Goldschmidt.
I hope he's not a dead cat yet, but I was kind of forecasting it, but jumping into that lineup and really kind of a friendlier park, I think, even for a right-handed hitter. I kind of like it. I like what I've seen from him this spring. I think he seems motivated. The K numbers are a little bit alarming for this particular format, but I just thought the upside was nice. And I am a Yankee guy, despite the Cubs shirt. So I kind of like Goldschmidt this year. I think he could easily knock in 100 runs in that lineup. Yeah, no, I mean, if he, the strikeout rate was alarmingly high in the first half of last season. If he can keep it in the normal bad range, like it was in the second half, it was more like 25%. And his OPS was in the high 700s. If he can do that, that's going to be a fine pick, especially batting behind Aaron Judge. Going to drive in a lot of runs there. Yeah. I went with Jonathan India, one of my favorite picks in a points league. He walked 80 times last year. I think he's going to score 90 plus runs at the top of that Royals lineup. There's going to be a lot of doubles and triples, which is going to help in a points league in a way it won't in Roto. So I think Jonathan India is a good value. Gavin Williams, one of the biggest risers this spring. People love what he's doing. Big fastball, getting a ton of. He had like 7-8 whiffs with his fastball alone in a recent start. He's looked really good. Shane McClanahan, kind of a mystery box, but hey, he's going a couple rounds behind Spencer Strider. He's going after Sandy Alcantara, I believe. That'll play. There's some risk there, but he's looked really good. Where those other guys are not. So
that's true.
Yeah.
He looked really good in his only official spring start. He pitched in a minor league game today, and by all accounts was very good. Yep. We had Gleyber Torres. I'm out on Gleyber Torres this year. I hate the move to Detroit.
Yeah, I mean, he was supported by a lot of the counting stats that he got from a good lineup. Not that the Tigers lineup is horrible, but it's enough of a downgrade there where I think that you need to bump him down.
Especially, that's just like Yankee Stadium is not. Yankee Stadium is a hi puppy. Yankee Stadium is a little bit of a little league park for left-handed batters, but it plays pretty deep in left center. So it's not quite Comerica, but it's not as hitter friendly as the reputation suggests necessarily. But yeah, I think that's. I'm not even sure I'd take him inside the top 200 in a Roto league, and I don't think I've drafted him at all this year. So out on Gleyber Torres. Let's do some more catching up. Matt Chapman, David Bednar, JT Realmuto. I think the bounce back potential is underrated a little bit for him there, so I like the value. Nick Pivetta landing in San Diego. I think that's a pretty good spot to maybe finally get that ERA below 4 for the first time in his career, because believe it or not, as much as we've talked about Nick Pivetta, has never had an ERA starting with any number other than 4 in his career.
Crazy.
Spencer Steer, I took Gabriel Moreno. You went with Justin Martinez. The upside there is super high if he's the closer in Arizona, right?
I watched him. We were there for the last weekend series in Phoenix last year, and I watched him make people look silly. And I was like, wow, this kid is really, really good. And multiple pitches, too. He's impressive. I can't believe they're going to go with Puck as the closer. He's just so flammable. I would prefer Martinez. I think he'll end up with the job.
He hit like 103 in a spring outing earlier. So just that turbo sinker is really tough to hit. Reynaldo Lopez, the opposite direction. His velocity has been down this spring. I'm a little concerned about that one. Yusei Kikuchi continues to tinker. He's got a new, I think, sweeper this spring that he's working on. Brenton Doyle, just not his format, but at 165, that's probably okay. Mitch Keller, Alec Burleson, and Austin Wells. Austin Wells might lead off against righties for the Yankees. That's interesting.
I believe he's doing that, but he's been doing it all spring.
Yeah.
And you look up and down the lineup, like, who are you going to choose instead? It's the Island of Misfit Toys with that lineup. So, yeah, I get it. I get what they're doing.
I kind of think like Austin Wells last year, I think, had the 6th best xWOBA of any catcher. So like there is the potential for him to be an impact bat, especially at catcher. If you're going to be a platoon bat, that's not a problem. Most catchers don't play every day anyway. So I'll take in a roto league. Hey, if he doesn't play against any lefties, that probably means his batting average is going to be pretty good too. So I actually don't hate that either. At a position where outside of the top 5 or 6 guys, nobody really plays every day anyway.
Right.
We are in the second to last round. And Bryson Stott was the first pick at second base. That's one that if, he dealt with an elbow injury last year, if he's healthy, we could see a bounce back in that batting average, maybe 15 homers. I worry about the playing time against lefties, but that could be okay. We had Jason Adam go after that. We talked about those non-closing elite relievers could have a little extra value in this league. Jason Adam got to 299 points last year. That's actually not a bad number. And if he gets pushed into that closer's role or he stays as a middle reliever, you're going to get either saves or holds from him. So that'll work in this format. Yep. Michael Garcia after that, Taj Bradley. What do you think about the Rays pitchers? That's been a big topic of discussion this spring with the move to George M. Steinbrenner Field. It's just a much tougher place to pitch. Are you out on the Rays pitchers?
I'm not, because for me personally, their coaching staff trumps the Park move. I just feel like the Rays, is anyone better at developing pitching than they are? I mean, yeah, they get them hurt now and then, but but the maximization of talent seems to be excellent from that organization. So I'm willing to lean on that.
Yeah, Bradley, it's super hit or miss. When he's on, he looks like an ace, and when he's off, he gets absolutely crushed. But there's no doubting there's upside there. Andres Jimenez, the next pick. Taylor Ward, kind of like the oatmeal version of Brian Reynolds, just like an even more boring version of the boring guy. But you look up to the end of the season, and Taylor Ward's usually like a top 30 outfielder. You took Luis Garcia in a points league. Are you okay? Do you expect him to play every day?
I do expect him to play every day. I think that he feels like, to me, one of their core 3 or 4 hitters that they're going to be leaning on. And he made huge strides last year. People get tired of hearing the name Luis Garcia. It's been 5 years. We finally saw a little jump. He's still only 24.
Yeah, he's young.
So, the exit velocity jump was nice. He's getting up towards the average range. The speed was pleasant surprise. I didn't expect that much from him. And he's a really good contact hitter. So I think he has the potential to be a 5-category guy for them.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I'm concerned about the playing time, but if they do play him every day, you're talking about 25 pretty easily for him. So yeah, that's okay. I love I took Zach Eflin, love the pick next time up, Cam Smith. It's 177. That's too early for Cam Smith. He's the Astros' top third base prospect, but in this format, we're not drafting a bench because we're drafting an NFBC team in 15 minutes as the next part of our draft. So that's this is exhausting. We got like 4 hours left of this. Wow. But yeah, Cam Smith, they're going to play him in right field in a spring game. There's a big opening there. And it sounds like they are just hoping he doesn't give them a reason not to promote him, I think. So they are very excited. There could be big upside there. I thought I hit draft, but I didn't. I took Mackenzie Gore with my last pick, finish out my pitching staff. Let's catch up. We are about 8 picks behind. Ronel Blanco. That's fine. Clay Holmes. Are you in on Clay Holmes?
Boy, I don't want to be, but he's looked so good this spring. I have so many memories of Clay Holmes, and if you think that he's not going to crack under pressure, you're crazy.
Hey, maybe there's less pressure in the first inning.
That could very well be, and he has looked brilliant this spring.
Yeah, the control's been a little shaky at times, but that new changeup looks awesome. He's got a full 6-pitch arsenal now. I came in concerned because he was sinker, slider, sweeper. And that was all he threw last year. And that's a great way to get righties out. But lefties are going to punish you. And he's always had big reverse or platoon splits. Now he's got that cutter. He's got the four-seamer. He's got the changeup that looks awesome. Clay Holmes, it's getting hard not to be excited about him this spring.
Do you worry about him being stretched out enough to go, 130, 140 innings?
That I think it's probably the ceiling, right? 140, 145 innings. But there was he fractured his elbow a couple of years, like 3 or 4 years ago pitching, which sounds like a horrific injury to go through. But he's been pretty healthy otherwise. And he pitched the whole season last year. It wasn't like he pitched for 2 months and then was shut down or anything. So I do think 140 really good innings could absolutely be within the realm of possibility. Let's talk through the final round. We got about 13 minutes until our next one. I think Frank's going to join us shortly. Tanner Houck, Nick Castellanos, Mark Vientos. I mean, I know it's a points league, but there's nothing but upside if he's going to last that long in a points league. Brady Singer, Mackenzie Gore. You went with Brandon Woodruff, just throw a dart and let's see what happens, right? Apparently he was hitting like 93, 94.
Oh, yeah. I think he's back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a tough injury that he's coming back from, but it's the last pick in this draft, 16th round. In a 30-round draft, he can probably be your last pick too, where he's going in a lot. Right. So I think throwing a dart there are a lot of pitchers worth getting excited about in the late rounds. We've talked about a ton of them on the podcast, Ryan Weathers, Gavin Williams, although he's moving up. But if a lot of those guys are off the board, throw a dart at Brandon Woodruff. Let's see if he starts in mid-April and looks like himself. I'm very interested to see that. Yeah. Then we had Shea Langoliers, Walker Buehler, another one. I don't know. Throw a dart. Let's see. Shane Baz, JJ Bleday, AJ Puck. So we got both of those Diamondbacks start or closer candidates picked in this one. And the very last pick, we're going to throw a dart. It's Jackson Jobe. I mean, the stuff looks amazing. Yep. And then every start this spring, it's like, why aren't you getting whiffs? Why aren't you getting strikeouts? Why aren't you better?
Are you giving up home runs?
Jackson Jobe, YKA, 2 home runs today. It's like every single like stuff plus metric, every graphic that gets thrown up about him is it looks like Jackson Jobe is going to be one of the best pitchers in baseball. And then the results, even last year at AA, it was like a 25% strikeout rate. Just disappointing. 12% walk rate. ERA was around 2. It was great, but it's just like, is he going to be the guy we want him to be? If not, why? Why do the results not quite match the stuff? I'm hoping that it's just, hey, he's working on stuff this spring and it'll be fine when the games matter. But I wish I could be a little more sure that he was going to be great.
I think I might actually prefer Reese Olson right now.
He looks really good. His velocity's up this spring. The changeup and slider last year were both like 45% whiff rate pitches. There is room for him to be very good. Frank, join us. You can take us out and take us into the next draft.